Good morning, friends. How are you all doing? My name is Kim, also known as Yarning for a Smile, and welcome to one of my videos. If you're new here, thank you for checking this video out. I hope you find it interesting, and I hope you check out some of my other channels. If you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back and seeing what I have to put. Today is October the 6th, and this is a very spontaneous video because less than 24 hours ago, this was not happening. And this video and what it was not happening is the Stephen West MKAL 2022. I was not casting on another project. If you've watched my previous videos, you've heard me talk about my anxiety with my 12 current whips. And I was not gonna cast on anything new. And then I was enabled by Linda Simpson because she was talking about how excited she was for the Stephen West MKAL. Knitter problems, I'm telling you. In my cup this morning, it's actually some hot chocolate. And it is nice and warming because it is a little cool out here today. It says it's currently 49 degrees and I'm sitting outside. Before we even get into this year's MKAL, I'm sure if you watched the first of this video, you saw a little teaser of my yarns. But let me show you what I have made in the past of Stephen West. So the first thing I made was this shawl, and for the life of me right now, I cannot remember. Oh yes, I can. I think it's, is it dotted rays? Something rays. Maybe dotted rays. And I did it. Hello, it's me a couple hours later as I'm sitting here editing this, and it's not called dotted rays at all. That pattern is actually called Rising Dawn. And I named my project Dawn in the Forest. And that is why I took the photos. And then I'm about to show you of the sun coming in to incorporate that name in my shawl. And then I used the green for the colors of the canopy of the forest. So, yeah. Not dotted rays. It's actually called Rising Dawn. Enjoy the rest of the show. Bye! And some green dragon yarns. This was a indie dyed yarn that my local yarn store sold. And I will insert some of the photos here of when I took the finished object photos because I had photos of the light coming through because it's like the dotted ray shawl. But it's a really pretty shawl. It's rather large. You know, I'm right at 6 feet tall and I can hold it from end to end and stick out my arms all the way. But I like this because it's not a very too deep of a shawl. So I can actually have plenty to wrap around me. The little tassels. But it's not gonna be like hanging past my belly. It just kind of hangs right at the girls. Okay, we'll go with that. I also made one of his hats, and I'll link these patterns in the description below. But this is the Yes Cheeks hat, and you can see it's alternating little squares of knit and purl stitches with a rib. And this is kind of a shorter hat because this is actually my youngest son's. And I made this for him several years ago, and it has gotten a lot of wear. This is out of some Lorna's Laces Soulmate in the dark side. So for Christmas one year, I knit my boys. So I knit one of them with a hat. Those are like the loudest little birds ever, and they come to our front porch and our back porch and yell in our windows. So I actually knit my oldest son a hat in the colorway light side, and I knit my youngest son this hat in the colorway dark side to go with the Star Wars theme. This shawl, I meant to say, I don't know if I showed the pattern up close. It's like a seed stitch or a moss stitch, which is really pretty for a good variegated yarn, but it can be a pain to knit. And I also did a picot bind off. That brings us to 2021, when Stephen West had the MKAL for shawlography. That KAL I knew from the start that I was going to do, and I had all my yarns picked out like a week after he announced it, and had everything ready to go. Not so much this year, but we'll get to that in a minute. I chose yarns, and I'll insert some pictures here of my inspiration photos. So as you can see, I chose yarns to represent the colors of the Dia de Muertos festival, and I'm probably saying that horribly, and I apologize. I'm not trying to offend anybody. I think it's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful festival. I love the whole concept and history behind it, to, you know, remember those who have gone before us, and I just think it's really pretty with all the colors. This was the shawl that I ended up with, and this is very, very much out of my comfort zone, but I wear this shawl a lot, and it is so happy. So I have some neon yellow, and this was just some eBay found yarn that I don't even know. I don't even think I had a colorway or a dyer. The dark black is a hedgehog fiber, I believe. This blue color here is hedgehog fiber. This orange is Miss Babs sock yarn, and I can't think of the color. I'll link my project page that has all these notes. The purplish color here is Sweet Georgia Yarns. I actually added in a color. So this shawl, you had to have 5 colors, and then I pulled in what Stephen West likes to call a backup dancer. And a backup dancer is a color, the accent color, that doesn't call for it in the pattern, but you may want to add it in at times just for a little pizzazz. And so I wanted to have pizzazz. And I also wanted to bring that orange color in because I see it a lot in the photos that I was using for inspiration. And what's crazy is when I started this, I'm like, oh, I won't need that much of it. I just want to do it in a couple places. So I used this here, and this was some leftover scraps in this orange. But then I ran out. So like the first couple of rows of this is actually different yarn than the last part of this. And then by the time I got here, I was completely out. And this is a third yarn. So technically this has like 8 different yarns in it. And I really wanted to use that orange in these crisscross stitches. And I can almost guarantee that we're probably going to see these in this pattern this year because they were a lot of fun. I think he thoroughly enjoys doing them, and with twists and turns, it just seems like it's appropriate to see them in the pattern. I love the brioche section. I really, really hope we have some brioche this year. I went with the bright yellow and the black to give it that little pop. And I really like the simple color work here that was created by using slip stitches. But this was a glorious knit, and this thing is huge. So on the arm stretch factor, it hangs off about 6 to 7 inches on both sides with my arms fully extended. And again, I'm almost 6 feet tall. We gotta talk about the new knit along. I was watching a live yesterday, and I think it was Linda's live, and she had OM Granny Square on there. If you're not following either one of those channels, there will be links below in my description so you can correct that situation, because they're both hilarious and good. And they were talking about this knit along, and I was going to say no. Linda, if you're watching this, I was going to say no. I was going to be strong and not create madness in my already insanely amount of whips. But unfortunately, that did not happen. Because see, in all reality, I love shawls. I really, really love knitting shawls. And that's probably why I think I have 4 shawls currently on the needles as whips. And this will be my 5th shawl. So when I start growing even more gray hair than I already have, it's gonna be your fault, Linda. So know that, just know that. Know that you've created stress upon me. And it's fine, I love you, but just know. So that was like, I don't even know what time that was. Like, it was late afternoon. And I'm like, great. I have to go buy the pattern. I have to go pick out yarn. I hope I have yarn, because I didn't even know what yarn it called for. I didn't know how many skeins of each thing it called for. I was clueless, completely clueless. So during her live, I buy the pattern, and I didn't even look at it until after her live had ended. And then I'm like cleaning up the kitchen after dinner, and then I go and look at the info page. And Stephen West's patterns are known for usually 2 to 3 colors of yarn, sometimes like 5, like this bad boy. And they're usually, you know, 1 skein a piece. And I'm like, okay, so this is not a big deal. So I open this thing up, and I see that the main color and the contrast color, you have to have 750 or 90 yards, maybe it's 780 of both. That means there has to be 2 skeins of fingering weight yarn that match twice, and then an accent color. So at this point, I'm like, I don't know if I have that. I don't know if I'm going to get yarn in time. Is it going to ship? Is it going to be able to get me started? Because, oh my goodness, because that's what delayed me on this, was kind of waiting for the Babs colorway, because I had ran out of the like an orange, and trying to find a yarn that would match pretty good just by looking on a computer screen. And I was a little stressed, and I was like freaking out a little bit. So I pull up Ravelry, because I knew if I went to walk in front of my cabinets, I would be completely overwhelmed. It would just be a nightmare. So that's why I keep all my yarns on Ravelry, so that I can pull them up and do the advanced search in my stash and see what I have that actually fits the parameters that I need. And if you need a lesson on how to do that, I actually talked about that and go over the process on how to look for stuff in your stash and patterns and things in yesterday's live. And there's also a whole playlist that talks about Ravelry 101 that I have up on my channel, and I will link that below as well. But so I'm going and pulling up, and I see that, okay, I have yarns that could actually work for this, and they're not really matchy, but I do notice that I have 2 sets of yarn from the same dyer. I'm like, I can make that work. That could be a make it work moment. I just need a fun pop of color to kind of bring it all together. So what I did in my choosing was I went with my main color. My main colors is number 1, Malintosh yarn. And this is the colorway Cedian, I think. And this is Tosh Sock. So I have 395 yards, 361 meters of fingering weight, 100% superwash. And yeah, it's pretty. And the reason I came out here is because inside, with the way the light is right now, I cannot get accurate color. But that's accurate right there. That is very accurate. It is like this light blue color. It's like a blue-gray. And so to go with that, because that's going to be one of my main colors, My other main color is also a Malintosh sock. And this is in the colorway Nectar. Now Nectar, I felt, was a really appropriate for this time of year, as well as this one really. I mean, this kind of thing makes me think of fall skies. Even today, which is kind of why I'm outside, it's like this blue-gray color. And Nectar makes me think of the leaves as they're starting to kind of turn, with a little bit of browns, a little bit of reds. And so this is Nectar. And I'm sorry if you can hear that train. That train is actually, well, it's several miles away. But because it's fall and the leaves are starting to die back and it's so quiet out here, and the way the valleys are, it just travels and it sounds like it's in my backyard. So these are my mains. So now I needed to think, okay, I need a crazy fun accent color. And if you saw the first thing, you kind of saw my inspiration photo. So I went with Cameo Yarns. And this is based off the series Lord of the Rings. Why can't I think of that? And I thought it was a great color. One, because it kind of fits my fall palette. Number two, because the whole new series of Lord of the Rings has started back up, like the prequel that we were watching as a family, so it works well. But it is called Asleep Under the Mountains of Gold into the Lord Dragons. And this is her Gracious Sock Base, 400 yards of 80-20, 80% superwash merino, 20% nylon, and I will link these shop owners below. So this is this golden yellow. So when you put them all together, this is going to be my Stephen West MKAL 2022 shawl. And they are absolutely gorgeous. You got the sky. I mean, look at that right there. And then you got the sun poking through the trees and through the red turning leaves. Yeah, I'm in love. I'm so in love with this. I'm so glad I bit the bullet and decided to do this. And this is currently living in my little cat and plant bag. And this bag is from Evergreen Bags. And she is actually from Russia, I think. So I got this in the other day, not knowing I was gonna need this for this project. And I was gonna do a opening of it during a live, but with all the chaos of trying to get this together, I'm thinking like this is the perfect time to open this because I need these for this project. So this is from Queen Bags by Bridget. And she makes knitting bags. She makes a lot of the Japanese knot style or crochet bags, however you want to use them. But she came up with a new bag to hold your skeins of yarn, sock yarn. So I have ripped the whole of this because I don't have scissors out here. And it had a little card inside. And the card says, "Thank you. Thank you, a queen's bag made by a queen for a queen. Love, Queen's Crafts by Bridget." And there's something else in the envelope. Oh, it's a little crayon because her store is called. That is adorable. Okay. And what I got, like I said, was 2 of her sock holding bags. Oh my goodness. So the one that I saw her doing on one of her videos on YouTube was this bag. And it has mushrooms on it. And I love fall. She even has these cute little labels. You can see my fingers cracking from my topic dermatitis. But the way these work is your balls of yarn, and I'm going to be doing center. Typically I don't pull from the center, but for this project, because there's going to be so many yarns involved, I'm pulling from the center of the ball. But usually I pull from the outside. So you take your cake or your ball, but it'll be hard to do a ball because it won't be rolling around really good in here. Take your cake, stick it in the little bag, and then you can button up the sides. You can button it, there's several ways to button it, but I'm gonna button it this way. And that way when I pull from the center, nothing else is gonna grab my yarn and uncake it, because that is a thing. We don't want crazy uncaked yarns. One I got, which is a baby Yoda, AKA Goku. So we use it for the other one, which I got, which is a baby Goku. I swear I need to make like an outtakes to put at the end of my videos. We're just gonna leave it in and let it roll. AKA Baby Yoda. We'll go with that. How about that, people? All right, so it's got orange on the inside and same process. I gotta figure out where I can easily pull my center. Okay, so I'm gonna take it and put it in. Put it in, and there it goes. And now it's ready to roll like that. So now my two main yarns are not going to be untangled. I have another kind of sock I can use for my third yarn, but I won't be using as much probably since it is an accent color. I say that, but it's Stephen West, y'all, so no one knows. No one knows the madness of his brain, which is amazing and crazy and awesome. Now that all of that side of the way, I've actually printed off the first clue, because the first clue dropped probably, might have been 3 a.m. for me, because when I got up at 6 something, I saw it had already been up for like 3 hours, which means I'm already behind, because now it is 8 a.m. which is fine, because I've already told my husband that no one better mess with me, because this is what I'll be doing all weekend. So there's that. So, Westknits Clue 1, people. Oh, dun, dun, dun. I do print off his patterns opposed to using Knit Companion, just because I like to make notes on them. And it's just a fun experience to do his knit-alongs, his mystery knit-alongs, because there's a big community of people who are there to help you and to talk with you through this. But I will link it below so you can purchase it on your own and join along. But I am going to show you progress as I go along. So I'm going to, going forward, each week I will do like a little update video, and I'm going to put a spoiler warning on there. So none of y'all come at me for showing spoilers. You control if you hit play the button on my spoiler video. And I apologize if I'm not looking right at the camera. I keep looking in the middle of my phone, but that's not where the camera is. It's over to the left. So I'm sorry. But again, do not come at me for posting spoiler videos. I'm putting warning labels on them. This one obviously does not need a spoiler video because I'm just showing you the yarn I picked out as well as some other of his lovely creations. But in case you were thinking of joining this knitting along, you do still have time. I mean, he's very much into like do this at your own pace kind of thing. Although like if you're like me, you're trying to get done with that week's clue before the date is over and before the other clue comes out. But it can be kind of hard because his shawls are so big. I mean, we're talking about a total of almost 2,000 yards of yarn in a month, which seems a little drastic. I mean, even I probably won't be able to get it done in time. We shall see. But as far as what it requires, you need, of your main color, 780 yards, which is what I'm going to use either that blue or that nectar from. For your contrast color, you're going to need another 780 yards. Then you need an accent color, which is going to be another 100 grams of fingering weight yarn, which I'm using that yellow for that pop of sunshine, literally. He says you will have some leftovers, but it's best to have the recommended amount of yarn listed above in case you do not do a gauge swatch. Now, I'm going to have a real moment here. This is going to be Confessions of a Knitaholic. If someone was to ask me, should I swatch? I'm going to tell you, yes, you should swatch if you do not know your knitting gauge. If you are not used to knitting with fingering weight yarn or the yarns that you're using and you don't know how they're going to play once you wash them and wet them, you need to swatch all the time, even if it's for a shawl. because sometimes they do not give you a wiggle room in the recommended yardage. If your knitting is too small as far as stitches per inch, you're going to be probably using more yarn. And if you're knitting at a bigger gauge, your project could be massive because his shawls are already pretty big. So if you're like, you know, around 5 something, that could be a gigantic problem. No pun intended. When I'm asked, should I swatch? I'm gonna be like, yeah, you need to swatch, okay? Now in saying that, I'm not swatching for a shawl. I knit so many shawls with fingering weight yarn. Actually, I think I've only knit, out of the 50 something shawls I have knit, I think only 2 or 3 have not been fingering weight yarn. All the other ones have. I know what I like my shawls fabric to be like. He recommends a 4mm needle. I usually use a 2 or 3mm needle. I'm probably going to use a 3 for this shawl, and that's what I have used for most of my shawls, but I always drop down a size needle because I know my knitting gauge and I know that I'm a loose knitter. Knit you a little 6x6 inch square, wash it like you're going to wash your finished object. So for me, I'm going to hand wash everything and I'm going to block it and lay it out to dry. So do that, because depending on what your base is, if it is for wash, it's going to grow. It's going to bloom. That's what that term is, bloom. It's going to get bigger. And so you're going to kind of need to know, you know, where you stand. Also, you need 10 stitch markers. He's very precise on that for some reason. Usually he's like, grab some stitch markers. And this year he's like, you're going to need 10 stitch markers. A cable needle. So obviously, that's a huge clue that there is going to be cables. I'm like giddy because I love cables. They're so potato chippy. Oh my god, I hope there's so many cables. I say that now, but probably by the end of this, I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want to do another cable. And you're going to need a tapestry needle, obviously, for sewing in your ends. Now, he has a video how he handles some of his ends when he knits over them. There is such controversy for that for me. I don't do that personally. I'll do like a little bit of it. I'll link the video below as well, this method of handling ends. And he knits a lot of shawls, but I'm very rough on my shawls, so I don't trust that. I will do it for a couple of stitches and then I'll leave enough tail that I can go back in and weave them in. Another train, really? There's never trains? Oh, that stupid track. Why is there so many today? Gauge should be 24 stitches by 52 rows. A similar stitch gauge is far more important than getting exact row gauge. And in case someone who's watching this does not know, the reason you want to get the stitches across more than the stitches up and down is because the stitches across are how wide this thing's going to be. So especially if you're making a garment that has to fit, if you have too many stitches, you're like speaking of several inches that's going to be added in the width of whatever you're making. If it's too short, all you have to do is knit another row or crochet another row. You just add rows. So it's far, far more important to get that horizontal stitch count opposed to that vertical stitch count. If you know how to knit, if you know how to purl, you can do this knit along. You're not going to be the fastest knitter at it because it's going to be a lot of advanced techniques probably, but he is amazing at putting out videos to help you on the way. And I'll also be putting out some videos. I actually have a video of how I did these fold over lumps I need to add to my channel because a lot of people are having issues with his video for whatever reason, not getting it or not following it. And so I made my own version and it worked out well for a lot of people. So I will post that as well because he may incorporate that again. I don't know. I don't think they were very loved by the community when we did this shawl though. I know this border wasn't. It was a very controversial thing, but I kind of like it. But anyways, there's so many people knitting this that there's going to be controversy. It's just the way it is. And then he goes over abbreviations. So to give you an idea of what's going to be in the shawl, you're obviously going to have to knit. You're going to have to knit 2 stitches together. You're going to have to make one left, make one right. So that's a left leaning and a right leaning stitch. You're going to have to purl. You're going to have to Do S2KP, which is slip 2 stitches together knitwise, knit 1, and pass the 2 stitches over. It's a decrease stitch. You're gonna have to do a slip stitch, and he even notes when you see slip stitch to do it purlwise unless otherwise noted. And you're gonna have to knit through the back loop. And you're gonna have to knit with the yarn in front. Oh my. So I'm looking at the pattern for the first time, and it's so amazing that the sun's coming on me because it's like the little light bulb is going. So by the time we are done with the first section, the first clue, we should have 271 stitches on our needle. Let the fun begin. I do want to say this about his patterns. So on the back of his clues, he says, share your progress photos on Instagram with westknits MKAL 2022 and hashtag stitches and turns MKAL. But then he says, and even links the Ravelry group, because there's a Ravelry group with clues photos and there's one without photos. So make sure you're posting in the right one if you choose to post in his Ravelry group. But it says, please use the Mystery Cow Shawl square photo, the MKAL logo, or a photo of your unknit yarn as your first photo on your Ravelry project page throughout the month of October, as well as your post on Instagram, so you can avoid spoiler images to others, which is why I'm putting a spoiler at the future videos of my progress. We won't be heavily policing spoiler images because of the volume of photos shared. So if you don't want to see any spoiler images, I recommend avoiding the Ravelry project pages and social media for the first couple of days after each clue is released. So what that means is when you put a post on Ravelry, you want to make sure you put, like, copy his MK2 2022 photo, or put like a picture of your yarn each time first. So when someone is scrolling through the Instagram feed, they see that first before they see what progress you're working on. And that's just being polite, so you don't ruin it for others. I mean, that's what it is. Also, do the same thing on your Ravelry page. So when you update your Ravelry page each clue, make sure your top photo, because your very top photo is going to be the one that's going to show on your actual page, is that photo that's not going to be a spoiler. Now, I understand not everyone's going to do that. And I was in a group, I'm still in the group on Facebook, where people were getting like irate at other people for not doing that and calling them out and saying, well, you know, that's the rule. He even says they're not going to be policing it. There's no police that are going to track that and get onto someone who doesn't. So there has to be a responsibility of the knitter making the shawl. If you don't want to see spoilers, stay off social media for the first couple of days after each clue so you don't see the spoiler. You know, and I hate that, you know, that has to be out there and that he even has to put that out there. But from what I understood, he actually got like a lot of angry messages because people are like, well, if people are showing, you should be policing. There are so many people doing this that are posting pictures nonstop during this whole thing. There is no way he's going to be able to control it. I don't know how many people have already bought the pattern. I'll post that here to give you an idea because you can see that information on Ravelry. But I can almost guarantee it's going to be probably, I'm going to guess, probably around 10,000 people have bought the pattern. That's going to be my guess. Anywhere from 7,000 to 10,000 people. It's going to be impossible for him to handle that amount of volume of keeping everyone from showing spoiler photos. It's just the way it is. But that's all I'll have today. I'm going to hop off so I can go in and edit this and get this up for you guys. If you have any questions, please let me know. If you're joining this knit along and you're making a video about it, please put a comment below and tag me so I can come watch your video and see your colors. I hope you all have a wonderful day. See the description box for all the information, and happy crafting.